The galaxy was a powder keg, and the Galactic Council was too cowardly to light the match. Ambassador Celine Carter's mind raced as she sat in the Grand Council chamber, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders. The room was filled with representatives of the galaxy's most powerful factions, their faces as cold as the stars that spanned the vastness between them. For centuries they had fought an endless war, an ancient conflict between two alien alliances, each struggling for control of resources, territory, and influence. The Galactic Council had tried to mediate peace talks for decades, but the reality was clear. Neither side was willing to stop fighting, and the Council had failed to bring them together. Celine had been sent not to negotiate a ceasefire, but to push the impossible, to make them listen. As Earth's first official ambassador to the Council, she had no illusions about the political realities of galactic diplomacy. But one thing was certain: humanity was not going to sit on the sidelines any longer. "You're wasting your time, Ambassador," a reptilian representative named Vectal sneered from across the table. His scales shimmered under the harsh artificial lights, but his tone dripped with the kind of condescension reserved for those he considered beneath him. "This war is older than your species. You have no place here." Celine didn't flinch. She knew Vectal's type all too well. The self-assured, power-hungry elites who saw anything less than total dominance as weakness. But she also knew something they didn't: humanity was anything but weak. She stood up, the echo of her heels sharp against the polished floor. "I didn't come here for your approval, Vectal. I came because Earth is done waiting. The war ends now, or we make sure it does." A murmur rippled through the room, a mix of disbelief and quiet unease. Celine's words hung in the air like a challenge, but she wasn't interested in their fear. She was interested in action. There had been enough posturing, enough endless negotiations that led to nothing. It was time to stop pretending the status quo could continue. The human diplomat leaned over the table, locking eyes with the leaders of the two warring factions. "For too long, you've wasted lives and resources in a pointless struggle. And for what? To prove who is the strongest? Your kind destroyed entire civilizations over the smallest of insults, but humanity doesn't operate that way. We don't get involved in wars without a purpose, but we will finish one if we have to." There was a stillness in the room, as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. No one spoke. Vectal's gaze hardened, but Celine noticed a flicker of something: fear, perhaps? Or was it doubt? No one had expected this. No one had expected humanity to step up, not like this. "You're making a mistake," a voice from the other side of the chamber spoke up, a deep baritone that reverberated with ancient authority. It was Rastu, the leader of the rival alliance, his humanoid frame towering over the others. His eyes glowed faintly, a signal of his species' bioluminescent traits. "The war is centuries old, Ambassador. You're a fool if you think a single planet can tip the balance." Celine met his gaze unwaveringly. "I don't think Earth can win the war on its own. But I think Earth can change everything." Her declaration was simple, but it was enough to send a shockwave through the room. The Council had never seen anything like it before. A human standing in the heart of galactic power, declaring that her species would no longer be a passive observer. In truth, Celine wasn't sure how Earth would make an impact, but she knew the truth in her bones. Humanity had something none of these long-standing powers possessed. They had the heart, the grit, and the will to push forward even when the odds were against them. "This war will end when you realize that there's something far more dangerous than your petty differences," she said, her voice steady. "Humanity's entry into this conflict is not a threat to your power. It's the wake-up call the galaxy needs." A silence followed her words, a silence pregnant with uncertainty. There was a sense of foreboding, like the calm before a storm. The representatives of the Council exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. For a moment, it seemed as though they might continue with their endless debates, but then a voice broke through, steady and cold. "Very well," Vectal sneered. "You've made your point, Ambassador. But understand this: your species is no more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. You will not reshape the fate of this war." Celine gave him a thin smile. "You're right. But we don't need to reshape the war. We just need to end it." With that, she turned on her heel, her words lingering in the air. The galaxy was no longer a place where wars could be fought endlessly. The human diplomat had thrown down a gauntlet and there was no going back. The match was lit. The galaxy had never seen anything like this before, a human fleet preparing for war. Ambassador Celine Carter stood before a holographic display of Earth's military assets, her eyes scanning the grid of fleets, soldiers, and advanced technologies. She had expected resistance, But the intensity of opposition from both the Galactic Council and human politicians had caught her off guard. The message had been clear. Earth was stepping into a war that didn't concern them, and they should leave it to the seasoned galactic powers. But Selene knew better. Humanity's place in the universe had been defined by survival, by the ability to adapt, and now by their decision to fight. "The message has been delivered, Ambassador," Commander Tomas Vega said, his voice calm, betraying none of the nervousness that gripped the others in the room. He was the head of the newly formed Earth Defense Fleet, a force unlike any other the galaxy had ever seen. "We are ready." Selene nodded but didn't speak immediately. She had expected humanity's decision to join the war to send shockwaves through the galaxy, but the immediate impact had been far greater than she could have imagined. Political backlashes had come from every direction. Alien leaders who called them foolish, human politicians who questioned their readiness, but what stung the most was the skepticism from the military itself. Few thought they were ready for what lay ahead. "Are you sure we're prepared?" she asked, breaking the silence. Tomas shifted uneasily but held her gaze. "We've trained our forces for this moment. The technology we've developed, especially the new warships, nothing like them exists anywhere in the galaxy. But," he paused, clearly struggling with the weight of the decision, "I'm not sure anyone is truly ready for the scale of this conflict." Selene understood his hesitation. This wasn't just about tactics. This was about survival. Humanity was no longer looking to merely preserve their way of life. They were looking to assert their place in the galaxy. "There's no turning back now," she said, her voice steady. "The fleets will launch and Earth's forces will stand at the forefront. We have the advantage of unpredictability on our side. That's something these alien warlords won't see coming." The fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had encountered before. The human forces had taken the best of what was already in use and innovated beyond it. Sleek warships armed with devastating new energy weapons, advanced tactical drones, and troops with gear and training designed specifically for the harshest combat environments. The strength of their forces wasn't just in technology, it was in their adaptability, the sheer human will to succeed. The aliens had fought the same war for centuries. Earth was going to rewrite the rules. As the final preparations were made, Selene addressed the council once again, her words sharp, cutting through the waves of objections and fear. "I'm not asking for your permission," she said, her voice echoing across the galactic communications network. "We've made our choice. Humanity is joining the fight. If you stand with us, we will win. If you stand against us, you'll find out just how far we're willing to go." A silence followed her declaration, not of surprise but of recognition. The council's faces remained unreadable, their indifference palpable. They didn't believe her, but they didn't dare underestimate her either. The storm had been unleashed, and Earth's entrance into the war would no longer be debated, it would be proven on the battlefield. Back on Earth, as the fleet prepared to depart, Selene felt a rare calm settle over her. The politicians had questioned her motives. The military had hesitated. But she had made her decision, and it was a decision that would change everything. Humanity had chosen to fight. And in the blink of an eye, the balance of power had shifted. What had once been a war between ancient alien civilizations would now have to reckon with the unpredictable, unyielding force that was Earth. The galaxy would never be the same again. The first strike was a message. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's wrath was not to be underestimated. Selene Carter stood at the command center, watching the live feeds from Earth's newly assembled fleet as it neared the enemy stronghold. It had been only days since the announcement that humanity was joining the war, and yet Earth's forces had already made their mark. The first battle was imminent, and Selene knew this was their moment to prove their worth. "Everything is in position," Commander Tomas Vega reported, his face tense but focused. "We're on schedule for the attack." Selene nodded but couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in her gut. This wasn't just about military tactics, it was about survival. Humanity's decision to fight had already sent shockwaves across the galaxy, and now the first test was at hand. Would Earth's forces rise to the challenge? Or would they fall under the weight of a centuries-old war they barely understood? "Ready the fleet," she said, her voice steady. "This will set the tone for everything that follows." Across the vast expanse of space, the human warships moved into formation. They were sleek, imposing, and unlike anything the galaxy's alien factions had seen before. Earth had spent years preparing for this moment, years of secret research, testing, and development. Their warships were equipped with new energy weapons that had never been used in battle, advanced cloaking technology, and enhanced shields capable of withstanding the strongest of enemy barrages. But what truly set Earth's forces apart was their unrelenting resolve. The fleet wasn't just fighting for territory or power, they were fighting for survival, for the chance to prove humanity's place in the galaxy. The alien factions might have been waging war for centuries, but humanity was about to show them what true desperation and innovation looked like. As the first shots were fired, Celine watched the battle unfold from her command center. The enemy ships, large and heavily armored, were formidable, but they were also predictable. They had fought the same war with the same strategies for generations. The humans, however, were something new. They didn't follow the usual tactics. They adapted, responded quickly, and struck with precision. Captain Jonas Hawk, commanding the lead ship, called in over the comms. "The enemy is closing in fast, but we've got the upper hand. They didn't expect our energy weapons to be this powerful. They're scrambling." Celine allowed herself a small smile. Hawk was a veteran, one of the best military minds humanity had to offer. His confidence was infectious, and it was exactly what the fleet needed. The battle raged on, human ships moving with a fluidity and coordination that stunned the alien forces. One after another, the enemy's ships fell to Earth's new weaponry, their shields unable to withstand the sustained fire from the human warships. The aliens tried to counterattack, launching missiles and fighters, but humanity's advanced drones swiftly neutralized any threats before they could get close. But it wasn't just the technology that was winning this fight, it was the human spirit. The warriors aboard the human ships fought with a ferocity and determination that the galaxy's ancient species had long forgotten. They weren't simply defending their home, they were defending their right to exist, to carve out a future among the stars. For a moment, it seemed as though the battle would end quickly, but the alien commanders had more up their sleeves. A massive enemy ship, far larger than anything the humans had faced, emerged from the far side of the battlefield. It was a behemoth, bristling with weapons and shielded with technology far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered. "Prepare for the worst," Tomas Vega said, his voice steady but strained. "We've never faced anything like this." Celine's heart raced as the massive ship bore down on their fleet. But instead of retreating, humanity's ships pressed forward, their weapons lighting up the dark void of space. The energy blasts were powerful, but it was clear the enemy ship wasn't going down without a fight. "This is what we've trained for," Captain Hawk said, determination in his voice. "Hold the line. We're not backing down." As the massive ship loomed closer, Celine felt a sense of pride. This wasn't just a battle, it was humanity's declaration to the galaxy that they were here to stay. The odds were stacked against them, but for the first time in centuries, the alien factions had met an enemy they could not predict. With a final, decisive strike, the human fleet unleashed everything they had. The alien ship's shields faltered, and in a burst of blinding light, it was destroyed. The rest of the alien forces faltered, their morale shattered by the unexpected turn of events. "We did it," Tomas breathed as the battlefield cleared. "The first strike is ours." Celine stood in silence, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. Humanity had made their mark. The galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The galaxy's most powerful forces had underestimated humanity, but it was the humans who would have the last laugh. The aftermath of the first human strike had shaken the galaxy to its core. Humanity's military had dealt a crippling blow to the enemy's strongest fleet, leaving the alien alliances scrambling to re-establish control. But despite their victory, Celine Carter knew the hardest part was yet to come. The human forces had proven their strength, but now they needed to solidify their place among the stars. "Ambassador Carter, we need to talk," Commander Tomas Vega said, his voice grim. "The Council's already demanding answers. They're not happy with the way things are going." Celine sighed, rubbing her temples. The Galactic Council had been less than supportive of humanity's decision to enter the war, and now, after their unexpected success, they were just as resistant to any form of cooperation. But they would have to adapt, just as humanity had. "Let them talk," she said with determination. "We're not here to win their approval. We're here to win this war. And for that, we need allies." That's when the unexpected offer came. A transmission from Ras-2, the leader of a smaller alien faction, blinked onto the screen. His species had been neutral in the conflict thus far, neither supporting nor opposing the warring factions. But now, faced with the growing might of Earth's forces, Ras-2 saw an opportunity for his people. "We're willing to consider an alliance," his voice rumbled from the screen, his glowing eyes betraying no hint of emotion. "You've shown that humans are a force to be reckoned with. We may have been neutral, but now your fight is our fight." Celine didn't trust him, not yet. Ras-2 was a creature of strategy, always calculating, and alliances with such beings were often more fragile than they appeared. But this was not a time for skepticism, it was a time for action. "What do you want in return?" she asked, not bothering to hide her wariness. Rastu leaned forward, his massive form filling the screen. "Survival. Your strength is undeniable, but you will need more than your fleets to win. We've been fighting this war for longer than you can imagine. My people know the terrain, the tactics. We can help you navigate the political landscape of the warring factions. In return, when the dust settles, we expect a seat at the table." It was a fair trade, but not one without risks. Earth had no guarantee that Rastu's faction would keep their word after the war, but without their assistance, the human forces could easily find themselves overwhelmed. Selene understood the harsh truth. The galaxy's oldest powers were entrenched in their ways, and Earth would need to adapt to their game if they were to survive. "We accept," Selene said, her voice steady. "But understand this, betray us and there will be no place for you in the galaxy after this war ends." Rastu nodded solemnly, though his eyes betrayed no emotion. "We shall see." The alliance was forged, and as quickly as the words left Selene's lips, the human fleet began integrating with the forces of Rastu's people. It was an uneasy partnership, but the combined strength of humanity's advanced technology and Rastu's tactical experience made them a formidable force. But it wasn't just the military alliance that would tip the balance of power, it was the alliance's ability to strike at the heart of the enemy's political system. Rastu's faction had long been observers of the warring factions, understanding their leaders' weaknesses and divisions. With this knowledge, humanity could strike not only at military targets, but at the very foundation of the alien alliances. As the human fleet mobilized alongside their new allies, Selene stood at the forefront of this delicate partnership. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, not now, not ever. The war was far from over, and now, with a fragile alliance in place, they were about to push deeper into enemy territory. Selene's message to the galaxy had been clear: humanity wasn't here to take sides. They were here to win. And with Rastu's faction at their side, the odds of victory had never seemed more promising. But the price of such an alliance would be steep, and Selene knew the cost of betraying trust in a war of this magnitude. The future of the galaxy was now in their hands, and no one, not even their new allies, could be trusted entirely. The final battle was not a choice, it was a necessity. The war had escalated far beyond anyone's expectations. With humanity's forces now fully integrated into the galactic conflict, they had become a force to be reckoned with, but so had their enemies. The alien alliances had regrouped, and their counteroffensive was nothing short of brutal. The balance of power was shifting rapidly, and humanity's position was becoming more precarious by the hour. Selene Carter stood at the center of the war room, her eyes fixed on the holographic map as the red lights of impending danger flashed across it. The enemy's final fleet was converging on Earth, their ships large and heavily armed. It was a force unlike anything humanity had faced before, and there was no escaping it. This was the end game, the moment that would decide the fate of the galaxy. "We've done everything we can to prepare," Tomas Vega said, his voice tight with tension. "But this fleet is massive. If we don't hold our ground here, Earth will fall. And the entire galaxy will follow." Selene's stomach churned. She had always known this day would come, but nothing could have prepared her for the enormity of the moment. The battle wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about proving humanity's place in a galaxy that had always viewed them as insignificant. It was about showing that even the smallest of species could hold its ground against the mightiest of empires. "We won't back down," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the room. "We'll fight until the very last ship is standing. The enemy may have the numbers, but we have something they don't: our will to win. That's what will carry us through." But even as Selene spoke with conviction, doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. The human fleet had seen success after success, but their numbers were still small compared to the enemy's. Their ships were powerful, but they had never faced a challenge like this. The enemy's ships were far more advanced, their weapons far more deadly. But they had no choice. This was the battle they had to win. The call went out across Earth's forces. They were ready to fight, every soldier and officer prepared to defend their home, to defend their future. The fleets readied their weapons, their shields, and their minds. This wasn't just a fight for victory, it was a fight for survival. The first shots rang out as the two forces collided in space. Humanity's warships surged forward, their energy weapons lighting up the darkness. The enemy fleet retaliated, launching barrages of missiles and heavy fire. The soundless battlefield became a chaotic storm of light, metal, and energy. Human ships danced around the incoming fire, using their advanced maneuvering and quick reflexes to dodge and strike with precision. But the enemy wasn't making it easy. Massive alien warships, designed for nothing but destruction, loomed over the battlefield like looming mountains. Their weaponry rained down on the human fleet, each strike more powerful than the last. Earth's forces held their ground, but just barely. "We can't keep this up much longer," Tomas said, his voice strained. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them. If we don't break their formation soon." Before he could finish, the message came in. A new alien ship, unlike anything they had seen before, was approaching at an alarming speed. It was enormous, bristling with weapons that could obliterate entire fleets with a single shot. "This is it," Celine muttered under her breath. "We have one shot to end this. We have to take that ship down or we lose everything." The human fleet pulled back, regrouping for a final, decisive strike. Their energy weapons were almost depleted, their shields flickering under the strain of continuous bombardment. But this was it, humanity's last stand. There was no retreat, no second chance. "Prepare to launch the final offensive," Celine ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We're going in." With that, humanity's remaining ships charged forward, focusing all their firepower on the massive alien ship. The enemy's defenses were formidable, but the human fleet had one final weapon, one that had been kept in reserve for this moment. Earth's new energy cores, more powerful than anything the galaxy had seen, were activated. In a burst of light, the final assault hit the alien ship, cracking its hull and destabilizing its core. The ship began to implode, taking out several smaller ships in the blast. The remaining enemy fleet faltered, their morale shattered by the loss of their flagship. Humanity had won. But the cost had been immense. The human fleet had been decimated, their forces reduced to a fraction of what they once were. Celine looked out over the battlefield, the silence of victory settling in like a heavy weight. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven their place and they had paid the price to do so. The war was over, but the real battle was just beginning. The dust had barely settled from the final battle. The once chaotic expanse of space now lay eerily still, scattered with debris and the remnants of destroyed ships. On Earth, the victory celebrations had already begun, but for Ambassador Celine Carter, there was no time to revel in triumph. The galaxy had changed and humanity's place within it had been solidified, but the hard truth remained. A new era had begun and with it, new challenges. As she stood in the observation room of the newly reconstructed Earth Command Center, Celine looked out at the stars. There was no longer a clear enemy to fight, no massive fleet threatening to tear Earth apart. Instead, there was uncertainty. The Galactic Council, still reeling from the human-led victory, had called for an emergency summit. The factions of the galaxy, once united by their war, now found themselves at odds over what came next. "Ambassador Carter, we need to talk," Commander Tomas Vega said, stepping into the room. His face was drawn, his eyes tired from the ceaseless demands of their new position in the galaxy. "About what?" Celine asked, her voice more weary than she'd intended. Tomas gestured to the holographic map of the galaxy that flickered in front of them. "The Council's calling for new leadership. They want to decide the future of the galaxy, and that means Earth has to take a central role in the political landscape. There's no going back to the way things were." Celine exhaled slowly. She knew the Council's desire for control would never allow them to simply accept humanity as a fleeting presence. The galaxy had been thrown into chaos, and every faction was vying for power in the wake of the war. Human influence had skyrocketed, and now Earth had to navigate the delicate balance of peace and politics, all while securing its place in the new order. "They don't trust us," Celine said, her voice flat. "Not truly. They'll want to control us, use us for their own ends." "They're scared," Tomas replied. "We've changed everything. The galaxy's never seen anything like us, like you. The way we fought, the way we adapted. They don't know how to handle it. That's why they want us at the table. They want to shape the future, but they're afraid of us doing the same." Celine's mind raced. For all the bloodshed, for all the lives lost, humanity's success had forced the galaxy's hands. The Council couldn't ignore them, but neither could they accept their newfound power. The stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just about winning a war, it was about forging a new path for the future. "I'll speak at the summit," Celine said, determination returning to her voice. "But it won't be about compromising or falling in line. It's about making sure Earth has a voice, a seat at the table, not as a subject but as an equal." Tomas nodded, though a look of concern crossed his face. "Do you really think they'll listen?" "I don't think they have a choice," Celine said, stepping away from the observation window. "They might try to resist, But humanity won't be intimidated anymore. Not by them. Not by anyone. As the summit approached, Celine prepared for the political storm that would follow. She knew the galaxy's factions would demand their say, that old rivalries would rear their ugly heads. But she also knew something they didn't. Humanity had forged something in the heat of battle that the galaxy couldn't undo. Unity. Resolve. The will to fight for a future they believed in. The summit convened, and Celine entered the council chamber, every eye in the room fixed on her. She could feel the weight of the moment. The future of the galaxy was about to be decided. But this time humanity would no longer stand in the shadows. This time they would lead. The council members were already in heated discussions, their voices rising with tension. When Celine took her seat, silence fell. All eyes were on her. "You've all seen what humanity is capable of," she began, her voice unwavering. "We didn't join this war for power. We joined it for survival. But now you must understand we are here to stay. We will be part of the galaxy's future, and it will be one of cooperation, not domination." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some were eager to negotiate, others looked as though they might challenge her. But Celine's gaze never wavered. "This is the new dawn," she continued, her voice steady. "Humanity will no longer sit idly by, waiting for permission to act. We've earned our place among the stars, and we will shape the future with strength, honor, and unity." The chamber was silent for a moment before the murmurs began. But as Celine stood tall, she knew one thing for certain. No matter the outcome, humanity had already won. The galaxy had been changed forever. And Earth would never be the same.